Hey, what is going on? It is Crypto Bobby. Happy New Year. Hope you had a great New Year's Eve and a great start to 2018 so far. And today, I want to talk to you about 5 things I think, in my personal opinion, are interesting trends to watch for in 2018. 5 things that I'm excited to see how they develop in the crypto asset, in the cryptocurrency world, in the tech world. 5 things that I'm really excited to see. I would also love, as I go through these things, I would love to hear, whether you're listening on the podcast or if you're watching this on YouTube, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What are you interested in seeing develop? What type of trends out there do you think are potentially fascinating, or what are you interested in seeing? I'd love to hear your thoughts below in the YouTube comments, or shoot me a tweet on Twitter. If you are listening on the podcast, would love to hear your thoughts here. And I'll give a quick high-level overview of the 5 things that I think are really exciting, and then I will break them down individually and why I think that they're going to be really interesting to watch develop, because I think they could all have huge implications, not only on cryptocurrency in general, but I think from an investment perspective, they could really impact a number of things, whether it is the speculation on specific tokens, whether it is a development of actual utility behind some of these platforms. I'm really interested in watching some of these things move forward. So let's hop into it. So the first thing that I think, and this is probably going to be, in my opinion, one of the most interesting trends, or one of the most interesting things really in cryptocurrency in general, is both Bitcoin and Ethereum scaling. How Bitcoin can scale, how can Ethereum scale, and will they be able to do it, or will competitors come in and fill the gap of Bitcoin being unable to scale or unable to keep pace with some of the transactional demand? Ethereum trying to be that world decentralized computer, having all the ICOs, having these new applications. I think there's Ether tanks now, there's crypto kitties. There's now these new applications that are coming out on the Ethereum platform that are actually making use and becoming partially utilized distributed applications. So I'm really interested in seeing both how Bitcoin scales and how Ethereum scales, and if there is a competitor that will be out there that, if Bitcoin and or Ethereum falters, will somebody come in to fill that gap? Will there be a better, faster Bitcoin? Will Bitcoin Cash become more prominent? Will Litecoin become more prominent? Will something else become more prominent out there as a straight up cryptocurrency or asset? From Ethereum's perspective, when you're talking about scaling, will Ethereum be able to scale? Will something like Neo or EOS or Cardano or Lisk or any of these other kind of platform plays that are potential Ethereum killers, if Ethereum falters, if it's not able to execute on its roadmap, will they be able to fill that gap and become the general platform play? Will a lot of those tokens potentially move, or how will that affect things? This is, to me, one of the most interesting things going on in the crypto space right now. The scaling debate, obviously, it's very contentious. And also, when you're looking at it, both Bitcoin and Ethereum scaling, you might be investing, or you might own some crypto of something that is potentially competing with Ethereum or competing with Bitcoin, and you might want to see those scaling efforts fail. So looking at that, I think is really interesting, depending upon where your money is, as well as how the industry is going to develop as a whole and the governance around it. So that is, number one, in my opinion, one of the most interesting trends to watch in 2018 when it comes to crypto. The second one, and I think this is also fascinating, is decentralized exchanges. Everybody loves to rip on exchanges. Everybody hates centralized exchanges, whether they get hacked or they charge, very high fees, or there's excessive verification going on. It takes forever to get your ID verified, or somebody can't take a picture of your driver's license, or they want your social security number, or whatever. Centralized exchanges have been a pain point for a lot of people. A lot of people don't like centralized exchanges, and there have been a lot of companies out there, a lot of ICOs, a lot of tokens, a lot of products that are trying to be a decentralized exchange. As of now, nothing has really picked up, really just taken off. There are a number of products out there. A lot of them have users. Number one, let's not go crazy and say there are no decentralized exchanges. They're not being utilized, but there is no decentralized exchange, at least from what I can see, that's being utilized as heavy as something like, Bittrex or Bitfinex or Binance or Coinbase or anything like that. It's just not at that level of volume yet. But how these companies or how these products can advance, whether it's 0x, whether it's Kyber Network, whether it's AirSwap, whether it might be something like BitShares that's been around for a while. It could be a variety of decentralized exchanges. EtherDelta is in existence, although that's kind of gotten hacked and been all crazy lately. But can any of these decentralized exchanges really gain market presence and take that away from the existing centralized exchanges? I think that's something that's really worth looking at, because I think there are a lot of people out there right now that don't like centralized exchanges, but the product that a centralized exchange provides from a liquidity perspective, from an ease of use, from a trading perspective, right now, for most cases, is better than what you find on a decentralized exchange. But that could definitely change in 2018. So I'm keeping an eye on how these decentralized exchanges come to prominence. Will they come to prominence? And if they do, will it be a good investment, or will it be a smart move to own something like 0x or Kyber Network or AirSwap or BitShares or any of the other decentralized exchanges out there? Will that be a good investment from a token perspective? Will the development of those decentralized exchanges power how those tokens move forward? So that is number 2 on my interesting trends to watch. The third one is privacy coins. I've been pretty fascinated with privacy coins for quite some time. I think that the ability to send money privately for a lot of people is something that is really, it's a big value proposition, at least in my opinion. The ability to send money between X person and Y person without having that being publicly recorded on a blockchain, without having your IP address visible, without having a number of things visible, that is really fascinating to me. And I think that privacy coins, whether it's Monero, whether it's Zcash, whether it is, everybody now likes to talk about Verge, whether it is, it could be a variety. If it's Dash, privacy coins, I think 1 or 2 are going to rise to the top. And how those continue to develop in 2018, it's pretty fascinating to me. And I think there's probably going to be 1 to 2, like I said, 1 to 2 major winners on privacy coins. And the tech that's being developed now by Monero, by Zcash, potentially by Verge, potentially by Navcoin, potentially by all these different privacy coins out there, the tech that's being developed now, it's really interesting. But how that gains usability, how that gains adoption, that's something that I am definitely keeping an eye on. And I think from an investment perspective as well, this is another thing that whoever can do privacy the best is probably going to be the winner there from a technical perspective. If there are a couple coins out there that are positioned quite well, a lot of people like to talk about those. For me right now, just from an investment perspective, I have Zcash. I know a lot of people have Monero, a lot of people have Verge, some people have Navcoin, some people like Dash for its privacy elements, but it's all across the board. I think that it is an area that is worth your own personal evaluation to see which privacy coins you like best, because long term, I do think this is going to be a very attractive use case for cryptocurrencies in general, is the ability to send basically money anonymously. So that is number 3, one of the more interesting things for me personally. And number 4, it's institutional money, big money, traditional finance, Wall Street, how that comes into play. We already have the CBOE futures that opened up. We have the CME group futures that opened up. There are countless hedge funds and larger institutions trying to get into play. There are numerous applications for exchange traded notes, for ETFs. There is a variety of things developing around basically the ability for institutional money to have access to Bitcoin, to Ethereum, to other crypto assets out there. And depending upon how things move, this is a fascinating topic to me personally. Number 1, because in a lot of cases, Bitcoin was kind of founded in that cypherpunk mode where it was trying to kind of get around big money, trying to get around big Wall Street and finance and all that type of stuff. And now with the rapid rise of obviously Bitcoin's price, Ethereum's price, basically everything in crypto in 2017, the big guys are trying to get a piece of that. And how this happens and what type of potential manipulation this might open up, or what type of companies come up and come to prominence due to potential influences from institutional money, that's fascinating to me. Also, you're looking at certain things like Coinbase custody or these different companies out there that are trying to make it easier for large institutions to purchase massive amounts of cryptocurrency, crypto assets. That is really, it's going to be exciting to see how this pans out, whether it might, I think a lot of people initially were thinking with the futures, this is going to open up the opportunity to short Bitcoin, and all the big banks that were saying, hey, we hate crypto, we hate Bitcoin, are going to come in and just short it and drop the price and manipulate it. And that necessarily hasn't fully happened yet. Obviously, the price of Bitcoin has dipped a little bit since the launch of those futures, but it hasn't totally crashed by any stretch. So at least when you're comparing it on a longer term horizon, but how institutional money, once they kind of start wrapping their heads around the trading of cryptocurrencies and how they can potentially leverage their resources, how that affects the retail investors and just the overall marketplace, I think it's going to be something that's fascinating. And the last thing I want to talk about is crypto leaders. And this is specifically from a tweet the other day that I think it's really interesting. And so this is from Kevin Pham, and he tweeted something that I think it's a pretty fascinating subject of discussion, and it's not necessarily a trend that we're seeing, but it's something that it's worth keeping an eye on, and it's worth kind of looking into context. So basically, what Kevin said is, with Charlie Lee dumping his Litecoin and Vitalik threatening to leave Ethereum, it's time to address an underappreciated risk in cryptocurrency that Kevin has been sounding the alarm on, which is leadership centralization risk, and saying that basically it's a multi-tweet storm, but saying that Kevin believes that there's a problem with a lot of people kind of utilizing a startup or venture capital investing type mindset, where a lot of people, a lot of startup VC investors, angel investors will really look at founders and they'll say, okay, this founder has whatever pedigree. They have a specific pedigree. They went to this school. They know these people. They have this technical skill. We're going to put our money in because we're basically betting on this founder. And that is something, whether it's somebody that's done it before, whether it's somebody that has some specific skill set, people bet on founders. And that a lot of people in the industry talk about assessing teams and known public figures as a big reason, and that Kevin believes that is actually a detractor of investing in something, because in the case of potentially Charlie or Vitalik, they are such known public figures now that if there is something that's, if Charlie leaves or if Vitalik leaves, then you're going to see the kind of the price or just the overall community around Litecoin be negatively impacted, or the community around, the community and the price around Ethereum, if Vitalik leaves, to be negatively impacted. And I think it is an interesting discussion, but I think you could really argue it both ways. And I think there are good and bad points to it. And I said this previously, where I said pretty clearly on Twitter, you can argue both ways. Clear public leaders are great until they aren't. It's a really interesting discussion topic. And I really do believe that. And the reason I believe that is because, and we can look at Charlie's tweet and we can look at Vitalik's tweet, but with Charlie's tweet, he mentioned, okay, so people lost trust in Charlie or in Litecoin because Charlie sold his Litecoin, and that makes him convinced that was the right move. Litecoin was too centralized and dependent upon Charlie, so eventually for Litecoin to succeed, Charlie needs to step away, is basically what he said. And Vitalik the other day kind of threatened, this was a few days ago, but basically said that if all Ethereum and all crypto assets and crypto accomplishes is Lambo memes, immature puns, then he will leave. He wants to see kind of more social change and benefits to the world, wants to steer the community in the right direction, yada, yada, yada. So both Charlie and Vitalik essentially said, if things maybe don't, Vitalik basically said, if things don't improve and if we don't start doing more social good, I'm going to leave this community. Charlie, on the other hand, said, this Litecoin is just way too centralized around me, and at some point in time, I'm going to have to leave because I'm going to kind of leave and need to allow it to continue on in like a decentralized nature. Whereas something like Bitcoin has no clear public leader per se. There was Satoshi. Nobody really knows who Satoshi is. Nobody has any kind of significant clue there of exactly who Satoshi is. And because of that, there is no risk to Satoshi leaving anymore because Satoshi left. He's gone. That happened in whatever it was, 2010 or 2010, 2011. I forget the exact time frame, but that happened early on when Bitcoin was still relatively very small, especially in comparison to today. So when Satoshi left, the community, it kind of continued on, and now there is no necessarily clear public leader that says this is this is that, and then impacts the market movements. Litecoin, on the other hand, Charlie is obviously the clear leader of Litecoin. Vitalik is in many ways the clear leader of Ethereum. But if they ever leave, that is probably going to impact the price and the community and the feeling around Litecoin or Ethereum in a negative respect. The one thing, though, I think in the argument here is that would Litecoin be where it is today without Charlie Lee? Would it have any bit of the market capitalization? Would it have any bit of the community, the user support that it has? Would it have the number of holders? Would it have the usability? Would it have any of that thing? I would argue probably not with Litecoin. I would argue actually definitely not. Number one, Charlie created it, but his ability to become a public figure, I think, is a massive marketing play for this. And on the spectrum of Vitalik as well, I think the kind of the genius of Vitalik and the way that he approaches things has also led to mass adoption or even greater adoption of Ethereum. And I don't think Ethereum necessarily would be today where it is today if it was not, and if it were not for Vitalik being a main public figure that goes to conferences and speaks at different places and kind of has that public-facing approach to both good and bad things with Ethereum. So I think Vitalik and Charlie have both propelled their crypto assets to, have both propelled both Litecoin and Ethereum to a specific, level. And I don't think that there are a lot of cryptocurrencies out there that are like Bitcoin where they don't necessarily need a public leader. I think that it is, in a lot of respects, a big advantage, but there is a certain point where if something happens and a leader is too closely associated with a cryptocurrency, then you could see something negative happen if they are to leave for whatever reason. They get kicked out of the community. If, God forbid, something health-wise happens or something like that, then those are some interesting considerations. But I think it really is a fascinating subject of discussion when you're talking about leadership in crypto and how that is either beneficial, or if it's completely decentralized, how that is beneficial on that respect. But even though, too, if you're looking at something like Monero, which is a very decentralized, at least from a development perspective, it's grassroots, there are multiple, tens, hundreds of active developers contributing to Monero's development long term. They still have, Fluffy Pony, Ricardo, they still have him to kind of be the public-facing figure, even though it is a very decentralized development team, kind of like Bitcoin is as well. So I think it is pretty interesting that the subject of discussion there. I think that is, depending upon how things work out too, long-term, when you're looking at leaders, will they leave? If they do leave, what will that do for your crypto? Whether it's Litecoin, whether that's Ethereum, whether it's something like Monero, whatever it might be. Who knows? But I think that is fascinating to see what happens with crypto leaders, because there is always going to be an element of turnover in the industry. Some of the people that were massive back in 2014 or 2013, 2014, some of the kind of the industry heroes are either no longer very important, completely out of the picture, have been kind of cast aside, whatever it might be. So how do things develop there? And those are really the 5 things that I find pretty fascinating when it comes to watching in 2018. Again, I would love to hear your thoughts as far as like what's most compelling to you in 2018. What's most interesting? Whether it's from, I would love to not hear in the comments. I would love to not hear whatever's crypto is going to take me to the moon. I would love to hear just kind of more general topics if you have that. If you want to talk about moons and Lambos, go for it. Let's do that too. But would love to hear your thoughts and comments as far as maybe trends or topics that you find really interesting when it comes to crypto in 2018. That would be awesome. If you are new to the channel by any chance, again, my name is Crypto Bobby. I do daily videos on the subject of crypto as well as YouTube Live crypto happy hours. So hit that subscribe button and notify bell for that so that you don't miss the next YouTube Live crypto happy hour, as well as my daily videos. Really do appreciate your time. Thank you guys so much for watching. Crypto Bobby signing out. Again, Happy New Year. Peace.